mean, the reality is, reading a book or going to a conference or having a great conversation where you get this golden information, that's all fantastic. But what makes mastery is execution on the ideas, not the ideas. And so no idea works unless you're willing to roll up your sleeves, do the practice, invest the time, put in the effort, do the work. I think we've all observed a lot of people who they love reading the books, they love showing up at the courses, they do all the online training, and nothing ever changes. And they say, well, you know, I don't know why it doesn't change, why my life doesn't change, why my thinking doesn't change, why my performance doesn't change, why my relationships don't change. Well, it's because ideas don't work if you don't execute on them. So if you look at the great business builders, you look at any great performer, one thing that makes them great is their grit. One thing that makes them great is their hunger to practice. One thing that makes them great is they are willing to sacrifice. I mean, yes, they're passionate, but did you know the root of the word passion is suffering? You've got to be willing to suffer for your vision. You've got to be willing to suffer to reach BIW, best in world. You've got to be willing to suffer the ridicule and laughter of your critics and your cynics to get to a place called world class.
So my talk today is about not just having an idea, like Ted talks about, ideas worth spreading, but actually making those ideas into an executable, successful solution. The issue is, if you're not going to tell anybody about your idea, there's no way you can really ever implement it, right? So it's not just the idea, but it's the execution that counts, right? So, because we all have ideas. I mean, I had one this morning in the shower, and I had one back when I did the Gator Watch thing, and we all have ideas. In fact, history is strewn with good ideas and with bad ideas that didn't turn out to be good. I mean, there's some good ideas out there that weren't executed properly. New Coke was an idea that back in the 80s, here's this 100-year-old company, the best-known brand in the world, Coca-cola. And they had this really, #1 brand, but they were starting to lose a little bit of market share to Pepsi. And so the marketing team got together and they said, well, we can't be losing any market share. So what they did was they said, we're going to have to go head-to-head with them. And they started to develop a new Coke formula. And they got their chemists together, and then they started doing blind taste tests. Blind taste tests where they took these formulas and they put them in front of people, and without knowing what formula it was, they compared it against Pepsi. And pretty soon, the people in the blind taste test started to like it even more than the Pepsi product. And they said, okay, we got the formula, let's go execute it. And they had what at that point was the largest consumer marketing campaign in the world. They went into all the grocery stores and destroyed all the old Coke, put in this new Coke product. They went and they took all the restaurants and put them on new Coke, and they did all these crazy things throughout the world, spent tons of money. And did the world come running? No, they ran the other way.
There just happened to be kind of a 1-minute ad right in the middle of, I guess, episode 4 or 5 for new Coke.
Quiet. Oh, sorry. How do you even drink that? Because it's delicious. What?
Which is something that I had not tasted in 35 years. And I looked it up afterwards and found that it's actually a real product again. Here it is, new Coke. Coke had been around for about 100 years at that point. Pepsi, I guess, started maybe 1950s or something like that. And Pepsi discovered that if you gave people a blind taste test between Pepsi and Coke, they would choose Pepsi. This freaked out Coke way more than it should have, and they actually went and they changed their formula that had been relatively stable, although not completely, but relatively stable for, probably 80 some years at that point.
What these guys forgot to do, these brains in the marketing department, is they forgot to really ask their customers what they wanted. They forgot to take the blindfold off. I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of people walking into grocery stores with blindfolds on. And what they found out later was when they studied what they had done, they studied their situation, they recognized that when people knew that they took this traditional 100-year-old America's formula and they changed it to try to compete with Pepsi, when they finally knew what the brand was, they liked it less when they knew what the brand was because people had been changing it. So here was the smartest marketing people in the world with the best brand name and the greatest advertising agencies, and in fact, they even had a better tasting product, and they failed to execute. So let's take a look. Would you like to learn 5 steps on how you can take your good idea and turn it into a successful execution? All right. Well, step number 1 is to know your outcome. That's it. Just know your outcome. There's a saying that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so by knowing your outcome, you're going to be able to figure out things along the way. Step number 2, have a plan. If you have a plan, not only can you communicate to your internal people what you're trying to do, but you can also communicate to your external people, your investors and your other stakeholders. So have a plan. Number 3, know your strengths and weaknesses. If you have strengths, great. Enhance those strengths. If you have weaknesses, buttress those strengths. Bring people in that can help you with those weaknesses. 4 is, what is 4? 4 is to use your resources. Thank you. See, she knows. 4 is to utilize your resources properly. If you need money, go out and get your money. If you need people, go out and get people. Assemble those resources that you need. And then the fifth one is kind of a wrapper around the whole thing. It's be flexible. It's be flexible enough that if the market tells you to do one thing and it's not in your plan, change it a little bit. Most of the time we have a plan and it always has to change a little bit anyway. Very few things go as we plan. So those are the 5 steps. And you can use them in your business and you can use them in your personal life.
Maxwell here, and I'm glad you're with me on Minute with Maxwell. Let's talk about the principle of executing ideas. Well, what's happened? What's happened is we haven't executed on the idea. Now, to be honest with you, I have a lot of ideas. And a lot of the ideas that I've executed on, to be honest with you, they didn't go very far. But what I'm talking about is following through on the ideas. And there are 3 things that I do that I think are going to be helpful to you if you really want to start executing on ideas. Number 1, write the idea down. Just put it down there. I mean, just as it is. And then look at it, because there's something about visually looking at something that is written that kind of lets you know potentially how good it is. But write the idea down. That is first. Number 2, try the idea. I mean, when I say try it, just go out and give it a shot. And it doesn't have to be a dozen tries. Maybe it's just 1 try, but just go out and say, okay, this is what I was thinking. I'm gonna act on what I was thinking today. Here's where you really execute well. After trying the idea, I call that, there's an expression I use, and that is I call it taking your dog for a walk. After taking your idea for a walk, in other words, what do? When you take a dog for a walk, everybody stops, what's its name, pets it, you start talking about your dogs and your pets, and you're getting discussion on taking that dog for a walk. Well, take that idea out there for a walk, try it out, and people are going to let you know whether they think it's good or not, but after a few tries, come back and look at the idea again. Now, not only in light of how you wrote it and what you did with it, but now look and say, how can I improve it? Because what I've discovered is that the first thought is not the best thought. It's just the first thought. Nothing wrong with that, because that's the thought that gets you started. But if your first thought is your best thought, you're not thinking very deep and you're not thinking very long. So you write your first thought down, you go out and try it a little bit, and then you come back and you write it again. I promise you, the second time you write it, it's better than the first time. If it shows promise, go execute on it again. You see, the execution of ideas is a result of writing them down, trying them, rewriting them, trying them, rewriting them, trying them, until you get to where you want to go, or till you get to the place where you say, isn't going to work. I've had both things happen. But I know that ideas get better with trial, error, reflection, and correction. That's what you want to do with ideas. Don't let them die. I promise you, if you don't write them down, if you don't try them out, and if you don't try to upgrade them, you'll lose some of the best potential that you could ever have in your life. John Maxwell here. I'm glad you joined me today on Minute with Maxwell.